Greetings and salutations. Welcome to the Slice on Branding. My name is Kisto and I will be taking on today's little journey. Now, the goal of today is to help you make those big picture decisions as your organization seeks to build its brand. Now, before we get into this top 10 list, I do want to talk about the importance of branding. Brands are a social construct. They exist somewhere in between the organization's actions and the public's perceptions of the organization. Basically, brands build relationships with the public. The importance of this relationship can't be stated enough. With this relationship, you add value to your organization. You add value by increased loyalty and increased recognition by members of the public. Now, in addition to this increased recognition and increased loyalty, we also are able to build a protective bubble with effective branding. This bubble becomes important because eventually something bad is going to happen to your organization. And in the event of a crisis, this protective bubble mitigates the damage that ends up occurring. And it also helps you bounce back more quickly. So now that we understand the importance of branding, we'll roll into our top 10 list. Number 1, a brand is more than communications. This cannot be said enough. We can think of a brand the same way we think of an iceberg. The part we see above the surface, this is the external brand. This is the logo. This is communications. This is the color scheme that we use. But below the surface, we have the internal brand. And much like an iceberg, the part that's below the surface is actually a much larger component of the overall brand. This is the employees. This is their actions. This is their decisions. This is what shapes the overall success of the brand the most. Now, while the external brand is important, if the internal component isn't effective, it's all meaningless. Number 2, understand yourself. If you want to build an effective brand, you need to understand your organization and understand your organization's goals. Think of this as an internal compass. This internal compass directs us in the long-term direction that we want to go, so that even as we make little decisions along the way that shift our direction, we always head in that general long-term direction that we want to go. Number 3, everyone is a brand manager. Everyone. From the highest level of your organization to the lowest level, all of your employees are going to shape the public's perception of your brand. When we look in the news, we can see a lot of negative examples where one person in the organization manages to send the entire organization into crisis. Whether it's the CEO or owner saying something they shouldn't say in the news, or it's a kid that works for a fast food company who messes with the customer's food. One person and their actions can actually send the entire organization into crisis. But on a more positive note, employees can positively impact our brand. They can help our bottom line. When we have employees who are engaged and satisfied with what we're doing, that helps our bottom line. That helps our organization be more effective in the long run. Number 4, have positive interactions with the public. Positive interactions go a long way toward helping you build an effective brand. So think about this logically. If you have a choice between two organizations, one of the organizations has happy employees engaged, they're very helpful as you try to go about your business, or the other business has sullen employees, they're not very engaged, not very helpful. Which one of these organizations do you want to support? Now, the interactions with your brand can also be through communications if they see your organization in the news. Do you want them to see you developing a new product or contributing to charitable work? Or do you only want them to see your organization when it's in crisis? So be proactive in having these positive interactions with the public. Number 5, develop brand salience and brand differentiation. Salience is the extent that a brand sticks out in the minds of the public. Think about Coca-Cola. It has a very distinct image, and through its communications and its branding efforts, it does a good job of sticking out compared to most of its competitors. Differentiation is the extent that a brand stands apart from the rest of its competitors. This is where we can compare Coca-Cola and Pepsi. When we look at what the actual product is, they're very similar. It's basically water, caffeine, sugar. There's not a whole lot of difference, and a lot of people can't actually tell the difference between the two based on taste alone. But by and large, through their branding efforts, they do a good job of standing apart from each other. Now, when we talk about salience and differentiation, this is where we talk about that external component of the iceberg. This is that part that's standing out above the water. The internal component is the larger component, and in the grand scheme of things, the more important component. But if you don't have that part that's standing out above the water and letting people know you're there, the public won't know until it's too late. Number 6, create effective brand materials. This is where we're developing our logos, our taglines, our mission and vision statements. This is where we're communicating what our brand is to the public, and this is how, as communicators, we impact salience and differentiation the most. Now, we do want to make sure that what we develop matches what the organization actually is and what the organization does. If there's disparity between what we're trying to represent and what we're actually doing, we're going to basically welcome a backlash to us at some point. Chipotle is an organization that has faced this backlash. They represent themselves as an organization that provides naturally raised meats. By natural, they mean doesn't have antibiotics, doesn't use hormones. But under certain circumstances, they have had to use more conventionally raised meats, which have antibiotics and hormones. And then they faced a backlash from their consumers. Number 7, test your brand materials, then implement your brand materials, and then evaluate your materials. We always want to make sure that we test first to make sure that they're actually going to be effective and well received by our audience. This is our chance to get that outsider's perspective of what we've developed. And this also allows us to make sure that we're going to aid brand differentiation and brand salience. Now, while this is an added time and it adds cost as well, this pales in comparison to the possibility that we implement something that's ineffective and then we have to start all over again. Now, after we've tested, then we implement. And as we implement, we evaluate. We evaluate to make sure that we are going the direction that we want to go. This is where we use that internal compass that we talked about before, so we can make little adjustments along the way to make sure that we're reaching our long-term goals. Number 8, be consistent in how you use your brand materials. It takes repeated exposures to a message to remember it. So the more consistent we are, the easier we make it for the public to remember our brand and remember the messages we want them to. This is how we increase the stickiness of our brand. We want to make sure that it sticks in the minds of the public. So let's think about an organization like Apple. They're very consistent with their brand in terms of representing the overall look and feel of the brand, even though they have a wide variety of products such as computers, phones, tablets, online radio services. They do a very good job of remaining consistent so that that brand remains sticky for their brand consumers. Number 9, increase the number of connections the public has with your brand. These connections can come from interacting with employees, using the product or service that you provide, or through communications such as advertising. Now, through these connections, we're building a web of emotional, mental, and physical connections that the public has with your brand. And the more connections that we build, the easier it is for them to remember your brand and for the brand to stick. And this is how we're going to improve our salience and our differentiation. And we also want to make sure that these connections are positive. That way we can boost our brand and our success. And last but not least, number 10, do what you said you would do. This hits at the integrity of your brand and of your organization, because at the end of the day, it's all about trust. A brand serves as a promise to the public. There's no communication strategy that you can use that's going to make up for an organization performing poorly. So build a great product, provide a great service, hire the best employees, be awesome, and develop awesome brand materials. Thank you for joining us on today's episode of The Slice. I hope this helps you as you seek to build your organization's brand. Now, I do want you to keep in mind that this is a continuous process. Just because you're successful today doesn't mean you're going to be successful tomorrow. Likewise, just because you're not winning with your brand today doesn't mean you can't win with your brand tomorrow. So keep at it and go ahead and do a good job of continuously trying to build your brand and adapting to your environment. Now, the Center for Public Issues Education has plenty of resources to help you with your communications and branding. So I invite you to go to piecenter.com/training to see different webinars and tools and also episodes of The Slice that we have that can help you out. Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed The Slice on Branding.